How's it going, guys? Todd from Toddtronics. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the all-new Retroid Pocket 5. Now, to start this video off, I do want to say that I was not a big fan at all of the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. I know a lot of people sung its high praises, and I bought it on the recommendation of a lot of people that told me that it would be the one and only machine that I would need to play PS2 and GameCube games. And I can totally understand where a lot of people were coming from when they did enjoy the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. But for me, there were just far too many drawbacks for the price point for me to really feel like it was the device that I wanted to use all the time. One of the things was I had build quality issues. I had issues with the triggers just not feeling all that great, kind of creaky and stiff. And then I also had an issue with my screen on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, where it just had this really bad like ghosting, artifacting thing. And other people had pointed that out as well. And I didn't even know that that was a widespread issue at the time that I had mine. I just thought something was looking off with the image. It just kind of things in motion just didn't look very comfortable to me. And it kind of felt like they were causing unnecessary eye strain. And as well as eye strain, the 4.7-inch screen that was on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro was just not good for me. But as you may or may not have noticed, things in the retro handheld space have been really heating up. Companies like Ambernick and Powkitty and several others like Iron have been releasing handheld after handheld after handheld, and it's just been an overwhelming year for us reviewers and probably people in the hobby space as well. But one thing I will give credit to for Retroid is that they really only release a product when it feels like they have something significant, and it does feel like there is a lot of big changes in the Retroid Pocket 5 that really made me interested to take a look. And for me, it seemed like all the things that I had problems with the last device are probably not going to be an issue with this one here. So things like ergonomics, the screen, as well as compatibility, all things like that are improved across the board, which should make this a great handheld to use. And lastly, another thing I wanted to get into real quick before we start today's video is a massive thank you to you guys. Now, this YouTube channel is brand new. I've been working really hard behind the scenes for the last year to prepare to release a YouTube channel. I didn't want to come out the gate looking like a total amateur, so I spent a lot of time learning how to do things like set up a proper camera and how to light a room and build a studio that's functional. And I've had a lot of good help and advice from a lot of the bigger creators in this space. So I do want to thank everybody who has taken the time to reply to a DM or has sent me a nice comment, or, you know, just the kind words all around, because I'm nearly at 1,000 subscribers, which I cannot believe because I've only been doing this for a few short weeks. So as a thank you, I have decided to do a few giveaways for every milestone that we hit. And the first one being that 1,000 subscriber milestone, which I think we'll be able to hit here by the end of the month. So I have picked up something special to give away at no cost to somebody that watches one of these videos. And I'll have more details on that at the end of the video. So you're going to have to watch the whole video, or I guess maybe skip to the end of the video if you want information on how to enter to win something from this giveaway. But without further ado, let's get into the review. Now, one of the things that made me want to actually pick up the Retroid Pocket 5 was the display. It has a 5.5-inch AMOLED display at 1080p, and it really shines. There's a lot of handhelds on the market that have big displays. There's even a few other handhelds that have OLED displays or AMOLED displays, but once you get this one in person, it looks a lot better than the rest of them. And they also did a really fun colorway with this one with the Gamecube Indigo style. And I decided to take a look at the parts of my GameCube that haven't seen too much sun damage, like inside the disc tray here and the underneath of my GameCube. And I would say that the color matchup on this is really good. The only place where it doesn't match up is the backside of the Retroid Pocket 5 is a bit brighter, but it still looks really good nonetheless. And if you do compare the buttons to an original GameCube controller like my Wavebird, the buttons are a little off color-wise, but the C-stick is actually pretty much exact, which is really cool. Another thing I really liked about this was the fact that we have an all-glass front panel here. It kind of makes it look a lot more high-end than the other handhelds on the market, especially at the same price point. I do like the buttons that they chose to go with and the dome switch style PS Vita D-pad. And another thing I really appreciate is how separated the buttons are here on the front. It's not something that people talk about a lot, but there's enough distance between all of them that it feels really comfortable. Now, ergonomics on Retroid devices have always been a sore point, and it seems like they really stepped up with the Retroid Pocket 5 and went all out. Not only do we have an ergonomic bump out, but we have nice little textured grips that go along with it, and it's got this nice premium look and feel to it that I just really enjoy. It just really seems like they took some time into the care for the plastics and the design all around on all the small details, even like the fan grill. It's just such a welcome change from Retroid, and they've carried that over to the triggers and bumpers as well. It was kind of hard to capture this on camera, I had to zoom in a whole lot, but you do have a nice little gritty texture on there. And that's something that I always appreciate. It's those small little details that show me that companies are paying attention to what people say and they want to give you the best experience possible. So it's really awesome. Because a lot of the time, these handhelds just really look like Android tablets with controls slapped around them that aren't very thought out. But to me, this actually looks like it could be something that came from a first-party company like a Sony PS Vita 2 or something. Having little details like this little cover over the SD card slot is a nice little standout feature. We do also have video out with USB-C. I didn't pick up the dock and I kind of regret it, but maybe I'll grab one for a future video, but it just feels super nice in the hands. Another trend in handhelds this year has been RGB or lights around the joysticks. We've seen it in the Trim UI. We've seen it in a few different Anbernic handhelds. Now, this one here, it works really well. They're extremely bright, and you can choose whatever color you'd like. They give you this cool little color wheel that you can select from. Now, this isn't a feature that I personally can see myself using long term, but it's nice that it's there for you. It's something you can toggle on and off rather quickly, and you can change the brightness level. So if you don't want it blinding you, there is a lot of adjustability there. But it does seem like the only option right now is for one static color at a time, which to me isn't a big deal. It's a fairly thin device at just over 26 millimeters at its thickest and just a little bit above 15 at its thinnest. And getting this thing in your hands, it feels really great. I'm very, very impressed with everything from the design options to all of the features that they've added to this thing. It just has a premium feel. And I mean, I guess it should at $220, but things like this beautiful AMOLED display, the controls, everything all just go together, packaged so nicely. And one thing I didn't really talk about a lot earlier is how much I'm really enjoying these thumbsticks. They use like a concave style, so it really just grips into your thumbs and it feels really nice. They're recessed into the shell, but they do have a full range of travel, which is always appreciated on these handhelds. Now, before we get into gameplay, I did want to briefly take a look at the official Retroid launcher that they have built into the system. Now, I haven't taken the time needed to go through each and every console and set a directory for the game files, but the nice thing is once you do take the time to do that, it seems like it does a good job automatically scraping your box art. Mine's still downloading here, and that's why a lot of these aren't populated. However, keep in mind, you're going to have to make sure that your game files are spelled correctly in a way that it'll understand. But it is a neat looking launcher. You can set specifics for it if you'd like to. My personal favorite Android based launcher to use is ESDE. It is Emulation Station for Android. Now, Retro Game Core has an amazing guide on how to set this all up. I'll leave linked in the description if you're interested. Now, real quick before we get into gameplay, I just want to go over the pricing and specs of the device. So the Retroid Pocket 5 is a $219 handheld, and that does not include, of course, taxes or shipping. However, Retroid does give some pretty good deals on picking up accessories for their devices, and they're pretty good about selling replacement parts as well. So you can pick up a screen protector for $6 if you want to be extra safe with your handheld, because it does have that all glass front. I do have a screen protector we can take a look at in the video, as well as I picked up the carrying case for $10. Now, I have some gripes with the carrying case, but we'll get into that when I actually show you it. They do sell the official Retroid dock for only $29.90. Now, if you don't have another system that you can hook up to a TV and play your games, this is a pretty good deal for that, and you are going to get some good dock performance out of the Retroid Pocket 5. So that's something I could confidently say would be a good thing to pick up, as well as things like replacement buttons in different color options, which I think is pretty neat of them to offer. Now, when it comes down to specs, this does have the Snapdragon 865, which is a little bit of an older flagship chip that we saw in some smartphones a few years ago, but it has plenty of power when it comes to emulation in things like Gamecube and PS2 and even some light 2D Switch games, and of course has enough power to play some medium to high-end Android games, which is amazing as well. Now for the analog sticks, I don't know if I mentioned earlier in the videos, but they are Hall effect sticks, which is good. You don't have to worry nearly as much about things like drift, and you're going to have good accuracy as well as good dead zones. Now the 5000 milliamp battery in here is also a nice thing to see, and the 5.5 inch AMOLED 1080p screen that we talked about earlier. It is only a 60 hertz screen, and I heard some people online a little disappointed in that, but for me, I don't really think that's a big deal. Now for the operating system, we are using Android 13. Now originally it wasn't going to ship with Android 13, but due to a lot of pushback online, they decided to delay the release of this device until they were able to port Android 13 over for this handheld, which is pretty remarkable because I don't believe Android 13 was ever natively supported on the Snapdragon 865. Now for RAM, we have 8 gigabytes of LPDDR4X RAM clocked at 2133 megahertz, which is going to be more than enough for emulation and Android gaming and things like that. Now storage, we do have 128 gigabytes built in on board for the device, but you can of course expand that with an SD card slot. And for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, we have Bluetooth 5.1, which is going to be good for things like sound as well as controllers. And Wi-Fi 6 is going to be really handy when it comes to things like game streaming. So this is going to be your Xbox game streaming, either locally from your Xbox in your living room or over xCloud. Things like Steam Link, maybe even some GeForce Now and other things like that. Now, when it came to the gameplay portion of today's video, I didn't really want to sit here and benchmark 100 different games because there's already a lot of long form videos out there that'll pretty much show you the max performance you can expect from each game between PS2 and GameCube games. However, I will say that expect to be able to play pretty much any game on either of those systems as long as it's compatible with the emulator itself. Many of these games are going to upscale between 2, 3, and sometimes even higher resolution scales. Now, for what I'm playing here, these tend to be the games that give other handhelds a lot of trouble. So this is Ultimate Spider-Man, and the cell shading on this just really comes to life on this OLED panel, and it just looks amazing. Now moving on to some fast-paced Need for Speed Underground 2. This is a really hard game to emulate, and it's actually running really well. I did have to drop it down to a 2x resolution. However, after doing so, it looks super smooth. And the same thing kind of went for NBA Street 3, where I had to drop it down to 2x, but after that it ran super smooth. And I was curious to play this game because it requires you to use the face buttons and both analog sticks quite often, and it was pretty comfortable. I didn't find it to be cumbersome or uncomfortable to kind of switch back and forth, so that's good. Now moving over to Tony Hawk's Underground 2 on the PlayStation 2. This game can give a lot of hardware trouble, but it's running fantastic here, and that dome-style D-pad is really fun for games that require like kind of fast-paced, precise D-pad inputs like these Tony Hawk games do. Now playing Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, I found that I was actually getting a lot of slowdown and performance issues on the latest version of Aether SX2. So I rolled back to the 3688 version and the game started running a lot smoother. Now this is something that other creators have brought up in the past. When it comes to PS2, sometimes you need to switch back and forth versions to get the best performance on a game basis. And for this game, it's one of those cases. So just something to keep in mind when you're playing PS2. Now, one game that I actually had a bit of trouble running was Need for Speed Most Wanted. Now, this is a really hard game to emulate, but dropping it down to the native resolution, I was able to get a full smooth 60 FPS out of this. Now, one thing I want to make clear is most games on the GameCube side and many of the games on the PS2 side are going to allow you to upscale to the full 1080p of the display, some even further. But here in my testing, I really just wanted to try the games that I know give the most trouble to these handhelds. And to be honest, I think this thing can power through most things, which is amazing to see on a handheld at this price. Now, one thing that I find to be a huge benefit of this handheld is actually the fact that it's running Android. I know that not everybody is the biggest fan of Android on handhelds, but to me, it gives it a lot more of a newer catalog of games to play if you don't want to just play retro games. Being able to load up something like Stardew Valley and have the same full experience that you would on something like a Nintendo Switch is a fantastic thing, and not enough people talk about it a lot. There was one issue that we're going to talk about here for a second, but it actually ended up sorting itself out before I finished the video. And that was that any of the games that were included in the Netflix subscription on the Play Store just were not launching. I would always get the same error over and over, no matter what the game was, and I was so bummed. But thankfully, Retroid actually pushed an over-the-air update, and in the changelog, it specifically named that as one of the hot fixes, so I was really eager to give it a go. And lo and behold, first try, it ended up working. And honestly, that quite impressed me because I already had an entire part of this video filmed where I was talking about how disappointed I was that that wasn't working. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but Netflix actually includes a whole list of games that you can play for no extra charge with the subscription, both on Android and on iOS. And many of those games are full AAA experiences that I really think are something that just come to life on a handheld like this and really give an extra value. And so when that wasn't working as soon as I tried it, I was really upset. But it just goes to show that Retroid are aware of any of these software issues with this system and that they're working pretty quickly to push out updates. And I did mention earlier in the video, Android 13 is not something that is natively supported by this chipset. This is something that people really wanted, so they delayed the product to make sure that they could try to do that for us. And to be honest, there are some bugs here and there, but it does appear that for the most part, everything has finally been ironed out in these last few updates. And I can say this is a near flawless Android 13 experience on the Retroid Pocket 5. And now that we have access to those Netflix games, I decided we would take a look at a couple of the games from the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition collection. And here we have San Andreas. It automatically defaulted to using all the extra graphics settings. And one thing I absolutely love about these ports is they're true to the authentic games in the sense that you can actually use the controller cheat codes. So this does make them a lot funner of a way to play compared to the other Android versions that are out there. And it's just a whole lot of fun. It's a super smooth experience on the Retroid Pocket 5. I have been using pretty much ultra performance on everything that you've seen gameplay testing wise so far, and I am recording at 30 FPS on my camera. However, I will say that this is definitely getting a smooth 60 FPS with all these extra graphics settings turned on. Even when things get really chaotic here, I decided to kind of just cause a bunch of chaos and mayhem to just really see how far I could push it. And to my surprise, it handled it just fine. It didn't really get any dramatic slowdown or dips or anything like that, even with all these fire effects and getting all of these police cars after me. And honestly, this is like a console-like experience. It blows my mind that you could do something like this on a handheld. They've done a lot of work to fix these ports over the last few months, and I decided I wanted to check out the mobile version to see how well they would run. I did not expect this. To be honest with you, I was expecting 30 FPS, turning a bunch of the graphics settings off, and when things like this happened on screen, I was expecting super dramatic dips. And to me, this is actually looking and running better than, say, like the Nintendo Switch version of this game. And the cool thing is, if you have a Netflix subscription, you don't have to pay anything extra to check these out. It's just something that you could go into the Play Store and download. And so I just thought, why not try it out? And it runs amazing now that we have that new update. Now, I didn't want to go on for too long because I do have another more in-depth review planned for this device down the line, but I did want to say that with my first impressions video, I would say that this is definitely worth the $220 that they're asking. I also think it is a big upgrade over the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. The handheld space is moving really quickly, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily, but I think in the long run, people are getting a lot better devices without spending nearly as much as we were a few years ago, so that's fantastic. I didn't want to cover every little thing about this because, like I said, I have more plans for it in the future. I just wanted to make a quick video showcasing how much fun I've been having with this handheld and just some quick thoughts. And along with that, I want to thank everybody that's been watching these YouTube videos so far. When I first started a YouTube channel, I was really worried I'd be making these videos and nobody'd be watching and nobody'd be commenting, which, you know, it's fair. It happens to a lot of people in the beginning, but I've actually been blown away with the amount of support that we've had, especially for being a smaller channel. And we are approaching that 1,000 subscriber mark really soon. So I decided I was going to pick up a few handhelds. I already have them in my possession, and I will be doing a free giveaway with those once we hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoyed this video today and you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I'll have details coming soon on how you can enter to win those handhelds. I think I want to plan something fun like a live stream or something to make it more interactive. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment something down below so that way I have something to read when I wake up tomorrow. And we'll see you in the next one.